Alright, howdy there folks, it's I again, Brandon Wenzel, your guide into martial arts madness, all things martial arts madness, but specifically film reviews. It's what I do, and you should know that by now. So, quick little intro thing here, just, if you saw my last video, my last video actually wasn't a review. I had a few pictures posted up about it, which was just a little quick video of my collection of martial arts films. I don't know if that necessarily needed to be part of the whole thing, but yeah, you know what, it just ended up in there, because why the hell not? It was cool. For me anyway, maybe for you. If not, who cares? But the video I did before that, of Sworn to Justice, I did want to do a quick little apology for that one. Not my best review. I kind of commented on it. I hadn't slept a lot. I did that like right after work. And I know I kind of came off a little bit weirder perhaps than I normally do in this whole little series of things that I'm doing. So I just wanted to apologize about that. That's out of the way though. Hopefully, damn it, that's right. Okay, another thing that I forgot to apologize for. I rated that film, but I didn't come up with an analogy like I usually do for these films. So, I think I gave it like a 7 or so, something like that. It's all arbitrary anyway. So what does that amount to? One of these days I'm going to do a video where I don't have to apologize at the beginning of it for the last video. Oh, man. Anyway. Alright, so what's a 7? A 7 is, you know what a 7 is? A 7 is Cynthia Rothrock never having done Badass Showdown. I'm eventually going to get to that movie, too. I really am. And, it's nowhere near just the goat urine that is Ninja Revenge, but yeah, I'm going to get to that one, too. So that's a 7. That's a solid 7. As if Cynthia had never done that particular film. Anyway, since 2 minutes and 35 seconds are now up, I'm going to get on with my review. Yay, review! Yay, review! So what did I review? Well, of course, I'm doing the Cynthia Rothrock Marathon this month for what's left of this month. I do want to apologize a little bit. I had intended to do at least a couple videos yesterday. That did not occur. In part due to my video that I did with the stacking of all my DVDs and stuff. Part of that, but also just other things. And believe it or not, folks, I actually do spend a fair amount of time doing research and stuff on these videos so that I can try to be at least somewhat accurate and not completely asinine in these. So, that's why I didn't get to any yesterday. But hopefully I'm going to get to at least 1 or 2 more today, depending on time. So, since I'm doing my Cynthia Rothrock Marathon first, my Cynthia Rothrock fact for you today. This is real quick and simple. Cynthia Rothrock fact number 4 or 5, I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. Did you know, and by you, I'm referring to you, the audience, not you as in me on my tablet. Did you know that Cynthia Rothrock was the inspiration for the Mortal Kombat character Sonya Blade? If you didn't, she was. That's the truth. Despite the fact that she's never played the character in any of the depictions, not even in Mortal Kombat Legacy, which is presently going. Which, by the way, I mean, I'm sorry, no offense to 7 of 9 lady, whose name I cannot recall off the top of my head, but you know what? That's not even unprofessional. She's not related to this whole damn thing. No offense to her, but come on. Come on, seriously? I think her name's Jerri Ryan. Jerri Ryan sounds right. I like martial arts movies and Star Trek, and I didn't know that off the top of my head. She was on Boston Public. I know that about her. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, I'm sorry, but come on. Can't we get Cynthia Rothrock to play Sonya Blade in something? Isn't she... I mean, she's the character... She's the one who inspired the character. Do you know Jean-Claude Van Damme was the inspiration for Johnny Cage? He was. That's a fun fact about Jean-Claude Van Damme, who has nothing to do with this. But that's okay. Anyway, so that was a little fun fact for that. Now, moving on, now that my intro's out of the way. Boom! I always do boom. That's my thing, apparently. I don't want that to be my thing. But anyway, boom! Here we go. I decided to review Blonde Fury. Yay! Blonde Fury! So, what about Blonde Fury? Do a little startup thing about it. It was actually directed by Meng Hui. I actually briefly mentioned this, the fact that Meng Hui in my review for Yes, Madam, and that he had, in fact, directed a film. And I'm fairly sure, as far as what I've been able to find, this is the only film he ever directed, which is a little bit unfortunate, I guess. This is actually a pretty cool movie, which I'm going to go into in a minute here. But it was directed by him. He also did some of the action choreography, as well as Corey Yoon and Chin Kar-lak. Who's Chin Kar-lak? Well, he's the brother of Chin Soo-ho. Well, who's Chin Soo-ho? Well, I'm going to get into that in a second, so you just wait the hell. Alright, so, starring, of course, Cynthia Rothrock, because if it didn't star Cynthia Rothrock, why the hell would I have it in the Cynthia Rothrock Marathon? That's a question to ask yourself, because I did it. So if you're doing your own Cynthia Rothrock Marathon, and you're doing movies that don't have Cynthia Rothrock in it, or don't have anything to do with Cynthia Rothrock, then you're obviously doing a terrible Cynthia Rothrock Marathon, and mine is vastly superior. So, Cynthia Rothrock stars in it. Oh wait, didn't I just bring up a guy named Chin Soo-ho? Yes, I did. Well, he's in the movie too. He stars in the movie, and he's brothers with Chin Kar-lak, and the two of them look almost identical. It is weird. I mean, weird. But anyway, Chin Soo-ho's in this too. And if you're a fan of these films, and you... Kung Fu left hand. If you're a fan of these films, then you know who Chin Soo-ho is. Well, you probably do anyway. You might not. Maybe you've seen every martial arts movie except everyone that Chin Soo-ho was in, which would be oddly impressive in a very strange way. But yes, he's in this film as well, and he's great. He's, opera-trained fighter, Peking opera-trained, which at some point I'm going to go into that, just in case you... do I have time to go into... Real quick little thing about Peking opera training. It's kind of not exactly a martial art, but it's like a type of training that a lot of these guys like Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung underwent when they were real young. It focuses on like acrobatics, martial arts to a certain extent, but not real martial arts per se. But it also has to do with like dancing and, singing and just a whole awesome performance thing. And that's where you get guys like this, Well, not like this, because this is like this. So that's Chin Soo-ho. Yay, Chin Soo-ho. So, and, like I said, so that's where you get, things like that. There's a movie I think is called Painted Faces. I actually haven't seen it yet. Shame on me. But that goes into it. There's also a movie that's easier to come by called My Kingdom. Actually stars, I believe, one of Sammo Hung's sons. And that goes into some of the Peking opera stuff a little bit. So check those out if you're interested in that. But yeah, Chin Soo-ho's in this, and that's just awesome. He's a guy who I'm a big fan of. Also, Elizabeth Lee, she's in here too, who I don't know anything about, really. I did look her up, looked up her film credits. I guess she had a, career lasting, like 8 years or so. But none of the films are really films that I'm all that associated with, so... But good for her! She's doing things, and is presumably still alive. That's a good compliment, right? She's presumably still alive. She might be dead, I don't know, but I think she's alive. I have nothing to base that on, I'm just going to assume. Because that's a nice thing to assume about somebody, like I said. And also Meng Hui, who, I just brought up. He's the director of this. And if you watch my thing on Yes, Madam, well, he's the guy who kind of looks like you and Hugh's younger brother, who basically spent his career getting the shit kicked out of himself. And he does that in this movie, too, a little bit. And he's another guy who, like Chin Soo-ho, was training kind of the Peking opera style. And again, I don't know, maybe he saw it in himself, maybe he just realized, I'm like this big, and I just don't come off as a viable ass kicker. I'm just going to get destroyed in these films, and that's okay. Though oddly enough, when he was a kid, quick little thing on Meng Hui, when he was a kid, some of the films he did, he actually did kick a fair amount of ass in some of these, going back to when he was really young. But anyway, so that's the main starring cast. So, synopsis for the film. Yeah, about 10 minutes, that's not bad. Synopsis for the film. Alright, so, Cynthia Rothrock, she plays a character who, again, I'm just going to call her Cynthia Rothrock. I'm not going to bother learning the character names. I know the names of the actors. So, anyway, she plays this FBI agent who is tasked to go to Hong Kong because there's a counterfeiting ring and they're pretty sure that it's going through this, newspaper publisher. And put this on my knee. So she gets tasked to go down there to uncover this whole thing, but of course it's this clusterfuck because it's international jurisdiction laws and stuff like that, and she's from America, but they're from Hong Kong. Whoa, the odd couple scenario. It's not even an odd couple scenario, but anyway. So yeah, she has to go do that. That's her job in the film. So she goes over there and she hangs out with her friend, played by Elizabeth Lee, who I think her character's name is Judy, I believe. But for all intents and purposes, we'll just call her Elizabeth Lee. And so they go over there and they're hanging out. They're doing their whole thing. And Cynthia Rothrock, in the meantime, she's gets a job at the newspaper to try to find the thing. But then they find out who she is. And then, so we're, what's going on in between there and then. So anyway, she ends up getting found out, I guess you could say. Not only by the villains. The villain, by the way, is played by a guy named Ronnie Yu. Now, why is that important? Why, Ronnie Yu? Other than he's a guy and he's alive, and I'm sure that he appreciates the fact that he's Ronnie Yu, but why should you care? Simple enough. Ronnie Yu, not really an actor in most things, but he's a director. Well, what is he directing? Well, I'm going to tell you, so shut the hell up. Some of the more notable things that Ronnie Yu's directed include Freddy vs. Jason, Fearless, Bride of Chucky, and Warriors of Virtue, which if you're around my age, you might remember that. What does this say about Ronnie Yu as a director? It says his movies are pretty good. But only pretty. Some directors are just pits of peaks and pits of highs and lows. Ronnie Yu seems to be somehow dead set down the middle as far as Bride of Chucky is pretty terrible, but Freddy vs. Jason is pretty, it's weird. I don't know. But in any case, he plays this guy who runs this whole counterfeiting ring. Well, that would be okay, except for the fact that, just so happens that Elizabeth, her dad is a prosecutor who works for the courts and stuff, who's trying to bring him down. So, of course, now this adds in another element. Prosecutor, by the way, I want to bring up is a guy named Roy Chow Hung. I can't go into a whole big thing for Roy Chow Hung, because Roy Chow Hung's kind of real, starring period was more during the black and white days of film, actually. But the guy had an awesome career. And more around this time, he tended to play characters very similar to this. He plays the judge in Righting Wrongs, to which, by the way, this film, Blonde Fury, a.k.a. Lady Reporter, a.k.a. Righting Wrongs 2, which is what I was going to bring up, because it's often considered kind of a spiritual successor of sorts, even though it obviously isn't a sequel, because it couldn't be a sequel, because, let's just say things don't go well for Cynthia Rothrock's character at the end of Righting Wrongs. But, whatever. In any case, so Roy tended to play characters like that. And I wanted to bring him up because he kind of steals the show in this movie for me. He is just awesome. The guy, when you see pictures of him when he was young, he was this, kind of strapping young man who, I'm sure played, these very kind of heroic roles and stuff. And then you see him in something like this, where he starts talking about He-Man and Skeletor. He-Man and Skeletor! Oh, man, that just... Oh, man. He-Man and Skeletor in martial arts. Oh, I love it. I love it. You see this? Do you see this? This isn't a fake smile. This is me in bliss. He-Man and Skeletor and martial arts and Shin-Su-Ho. I love it. Anyway, they capture him, right? They go over there, they capture Roy. And they go over there, they inject him with something that basically makes him, kind of a mental invalid who thinks that, he's He-Man and that the villain is from Uranus, and, and so that's where that whole thing comes in. So, that's that whole element of the film. So in the meantime, while all that's going on and everything, not only do the villains, who I brought up, with Ronnie Yu and all that and stuff and everything, not only do they find out about this whole thing, but the Hong Kong police find out about it. Who's in charge of the Hong Kong police, Brandon? That's pretty simple. It's Melvin Wong. How do I remember that? Well, if you remember my thing from Yes Madam, well, he played pretty much the exact same character. But in fact, and he did so in quite a few of these films. He generally played these types of characters. And I think in real life, by the way, Melvin Wong might be the coolest individual ever. Because if I'm not mistaken, in real life, he's like, not only is he a martial arts badass, but he's also like a doctor and a lawyer. So Melvin Wong just wins as far as I'm concerned. But the reason why, specifically one of the reasons why, I remember him in this film is because Melvin Wong plays Superintendent Melvin Wong. He's just Melvin Wong, and in fact that actually comes up a few times in the film, which really makes me wonder, I don't know if they were just doing it for fun, or if they just realized, it doesn't really matter what the hell we name these characters, most of them are just, the audiences will go along with it. Or what, but, you get Melvin Wong, and you also get Uncle Ma, who's Meng Hoi's father in this film, played by Wu Ma, as I mentioned in Yes Madam. Oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, quite a few of these characters transition from Yes Madam to this, which is something that I'm going to touch on just real briefly about this era of filmmaking in Hong Kong, in that, this was really kind of the golden era for these type of Hong Kong films, the martial arts industry. And I did bring up a little bit that, a lot of times they would just hire their friends to be in these films. And so that's one of the cool things about this era of filmmaking. And, and it even goes back to the days of Shaw Brothers and stuff like that. In that, one of the great things is in watching these films is that, you really do get to know, not only just the main cast, but the side characters, because you've seen the side characters of things. They might not be the main character now, but they might have been the main character in Fight of the Deadly Cobra, because maybe that's what maybe, Cobra style. Anyway, yeah. So, Melvin Wong and Wu Ma and all that good stuff. So, okay. So, to go over there, I kind of forgot to mention Meng Hoi's character. Meng Hoi's character, he plays, I guess, like a reporter of sorts who works for this, bottom-rung newspaper run by Wu Ma. They have some awesome little comedic scenes in that whole thing and everything, and, he gets involved with this because he happens to see the judge, Roy, happens to see him get kidnapped, when they go over there and make him, inject him with the stuff that makes him, mentally incompetent. So that's how he gets kind of brought into this whole thing, because now he has to team up with him because, of course, he just does, and, he's, I guess, a good person. So, on top of that whole thing, because the Hong Kong police are involved with this, they have to send in their own guy. But of course, they can't tell him that there's their own guy, so he's an insurance agent, and then he's a reporter. But he's in fact Shin-Su-Ho, who I brought up. Hi, Shin-Su-Ho. Hi, Brandon. That wasn't from Shin-Su-Ho, was it? Absolutely not. Why am I lying? Because you can see that I'm not lying. You can just see that this is just a poor attempt at a joke. But if you happen to know Shin-Su-Ho, by the way, and you'd like to go over there and invite him to say hi to me, that would be cool as hell, and you'd be my best friend forever. Anyway. Oh, man. But seriously, how cool would that... I'd like to meet Shin-Su-Ho. He seems like he'd be a cool guy. Anyway, I don't know, maybe he's a dick. I don't want him to be a dick. You know what? He's a cool guy. I don't care what anybody says. If you've ever heard anything bad about Shin Suho, then you're just full of shit. Anyway. So, alright. At this point, the villains start sending their assassins, right? Because you're a villain. You have to send assassins. So who do you send in this type of movie to assassinate these type of people? Wait, what time is it? Oh, it's like the 80s and the 90s. So who do you send? Billy Chow, of course. Billy Chow is like a staple of bad guy of these films. Like, probably most notable for his role, the Jet Li film Fist of Legend, which is actually my favorite Jet Li film, and he plays the main villain in that, the General. I'm not going to bother with his name. I don't need to. It's a completely different film. But yeah, and Billy Chow is just awesome as hell. He was from Canada, he was like a kickboxing champion, Muay Thai guy, and he was also like a head taller than like everyone in Hong Kong at the time, which made him pretty impressive physically. Particularly when he squares off against Meng Hoi, who, let's remember everybody, is this big. Billy Chow just dominates the guy, and I mean, it's just cool as hell. Just the the contrast in that regards. And I'm probably going to have to give credit to Meng Hoi for that. He probably was the one who was like, well, again, I'm this fucking big, he's this well, let's just, I don't know. But, so they show up, Cynthia Rothrock fights him, you've got Shin Suho in there. They go to a location which I'm fairly certain this is like a, Brandon Inside fun fact. I'm fairly certain is the end fight location for Dragons Forever, the Sammo Hung Yuen Biu Jackie Chan Spectacular. I'm fairly certain it is. But, if I'm wrong, I don't know, throw money at me. When you see me, that'll really piss me off. Just wads of cash. Not like, metal currency. Well, no, not metal currency. That's more trouble than it's worth. I'm not going to pick it up if you throw metal currency at me. But like wads of dollar bills. Hopefully American money. I don't need like francs or something like that. Do they have francs anymore? They don't have francs. They have euros now, don't they? Anyway. So, they go over there, they square off. The fight, by the way, with Shin Suho and Billy Chow is awesome as hell. It's kind of short, but it really represents, like, it's one of the best scenes of the movie, in my opinion. It's just too damn cool how these two square off, because you've got the very kind of, like, powerful, more stoic Billy Chow, and then you've got the very exuberant, all over the place, well, I don't want to say all over the place, but all over some places, Shin Suho. It is just awesome as hell. Like, that is just a great example of how to use those two. Do that more often. To Hong Kong and Hollywood and every other filmmaking enterprise. Call up those two. By the way, Billy Chow, I think he's retired from films. I think he runs like a gym or something now in Hong Kong or something. Somebody, if you know Billy Chow, convince him. Even if you have to, like, no, I'm not going to say that. Someone might take it seriously, and then I look like an asshole. But even if you have to, I don't know, get incriminating photos of him or something, I don't know. Get him back into films. Billy Chow's amazing. He knows it, and I know it, and now you know it too. So they go over there, they square off. Shin Suho wins the day, because he's Shin Suho. But then there's another guy who shows up and beats up Shin Suho. Well, who's going to beat up that guy? Cynthia Rothrock, of course! God damn it, what the hell is wrong with you people? Pay attention. Bunch of ADD monkeys. So, those two go over there and they square off. Now, who's the guy that Cynthia Rothrock is fighting? And here's where I'm going to prove that I'm not completely bullshitting these reviews. I looked for like half an hour to find out who this guy is. I don't know who he is. There's just no solid information on the guy. My guess is he's probably a friend of Billy Chow's because he's almost certainly a Muay Thai fighter. Just the way he fights. But you get a pretty cool fight between Cynthia and him. Not quite as cool, in my opinion, as the square off between Shin Suho and Billy Chow. But it's pretty damn good. So, to whoever that guy was, kudos for being that guy. Next time you're in a film, you might want to get your name on the credits there. But anyway, so they square off, and then it becomes this whole thing, and then they have to go over there and kind of get the dad and to lure him into this whole thing, and it's just, I don't know, at times it becomes just a smidget convoluted, but actually not too convoluted. Credit where credit's due. So this leads to this whole big, final duke 'em out thing. Well, who's left? They got rid of Billy Chow and they got rid of Nameless Frank. So who else do you have? Oh, wait! You've got a pair of them, I don't know if they ever say they're American, but you've got a pair of white guys in the film named Jeffrey Falcon and Vincent Lin, who are two other staple guys of this period. Jeff Falcon, real quick, Inspector Wears Skirts, I'm gonna feel a little bit bad. The guy, he's in quite a few Hong Kong films. He also did a film over here, which some of you might know, the cult classic Six String Samurai. He plays the titular, how do you say it? I'm trying to say like titular? I'm bad at words now. But anyway, he plays the main character of that, the Six String Samurai. And he's another guy who unfortunately just kind of fell a bit off the map for whatever reason. But then there's also Vincent Lin. And Vincent Lin, he squared off against Jackie Chan and stuff. I hate to say, I just can't think of his credits off the top of my head. But he did that, and he's pretty badass, and he didn't fall off the map. He has a Facebook page and everything. And if you're anybody in this society, you have a Facebook page. I don't know. But anyway, he's still around. He's not doing films anymore, but he's still around. The two of these guys are awesome. Outlaw Brothers. Jeffrey Falcon was in Outlaw Brothers, too. Completely off... Well, not completely off point. 50% off point. Anyway, so they're this pair of ass-kicking brothers who have to show up to go over there and fight and win. Fight and win. That's ideally what you do when you try to fight. You try to fight and then win. Unless you're doing it for money or something, and then you might try to fight and lose. But yeah, so they show up, and they're kicking ass. Who do they kick ass against? Well, obviously, Chin Suho and Cynthia Rothrock, right? No. Chin Suho apparently decided to go on his fucking sabbatical for the final fight, because he's just not there. He shows up a little bit later, but he doesn't, which was disappointing. And actually, I have to admit, the final fight could have been better. It's still pretty cool for what it is. There's even almost a little homage to the street fight in Martial Club, which if you don't know what I'm talking, just fucking YouTube it. It's amazing. But it's not quite as good as it could have been, if I'm being entirely honest. But it's still pretty cool. But it would have been nice if Chin Suho was there. But so it all leads to this whole big thing, right? And Elizabeth Lee's in there somewhere. She wasn't, she doesn't fight, so she's not really terribly important to that part of the movie. Even Meng Hui kind of fades out a little bit. But, in any case, how does it end? Well, a truck goes off a cliff, they save Elizabeth Lee, everybody's good. There you go. Poor Vincent Lin. He gets locked in a shipping container, and I'm sure everybody forgot about him. His character probably just died in there. That's terrible. The guy wasn't a good guy, but even, he didn't seem bad. He just starved to death or something. I don't know, maybe he kicked his way out. Vincent Lin's pretty cool. Maybe, sure, he kicked his way out or died of starvation. Anyway, so yeah, that's Law and Fury in a nutshell. There's some stuff in there, there's this whole thing with this awful nurse. She's got to be the worst nurse in the history of nursing. Which I don't, maybe that was a subtle commentary on the state of the healthcare industry in Hong Kong in the 1980s. Somehow I doubt it. Plus I think this film was made in the 1990s. 1993. Damn it. Anyway. So, yeah. So, alright. That's the synopsis of the thing. Alright, so. The good and the bad of it, right? The good and the bad. The good. Alright, well, okay. It's a really fun movie. I know that sounds almost more just a summing it up, but actually, that's actually a point I wanted to make. Because when you compare it to a film like Yes, Madam, which is, in a lot of ways, a similar film, it does pretty much everything right that Yes, Madam did wrong. In that it's a fun movie, it's fairly coherent throughout most of it. The humor is actually funny. You people might remember. I brought up the fact that, like, I mean, it's humor for another country for another time, and this wasn't that. It actually had me laughing quite a bit. You had the Skeletor remarks, and Roy's character was great, and when it's funny, it's legitimately funny, and it doesn't feel spastic or stupid, which sadly, a lot of Hong Kong films do sometimes with their comedy, because it's just not billed for, modern day. This one actually manages to do a good job of it. I have to give credit. So that's, like, one of the really good things. That's, like, one of the really, really good things, because that elevates it for me to just being a really good overall film. The cast, Billy, I mean, they had some great staple guys for this film. Billy Chow and Vincent Lin and Jeffrey Falcon, Nameless Frank. Poor Nameless Frank. I swear I'm going to try to find out who he is. Maybe I'll post it in another thing. And of course Cynthia Rothrock and, Melvin Wong, all the supporting guys. It was great. Great cast. The action is great. That's another point. The action really is. I mean, there's some very cool stuff. And unlike some of Cynthia's other films that she did in Hong Kong, this one isn't too bad on using the doubles and stuff like that and kind of these very exaggerated, like, flipping and stuff like that. Cynthia Rothrock is an amazing martial artist. Being an amazing martial artist does not necessarily mean that, you can do backflips and shit like that, though. So a lot of times they would use stunt work or, stunt people for her roles in that. And personally, I wish they wouldn't do it at all. I think that she looks best when she's just kicking ass. Like, she's awesome at that. I don't know why they do that, but this one, at least, compared to some of the other ones, they got a wig that would stay on, and, they didn't overdo it for the most part, so, so that's a good thing. It's a good thing and a bad thing, to be honest, but, what else? I think that's that's the sum up of the good. Alright, the bad. Alright, here's the bad, because there's gotta be bad, unfortunately. Like I said, it's mostly coherent. There are a few points in the movie that, to be entirely honest with you, they lose it a little bit for me. Kind of midway through, you just sort of feel like, when they're an easier way they could have transitioned here, like, But, that's part of kind of the Hong Kong style of that time. Things were very fast and, sometimes transitions. I wouldn't say they even got lost, but you just really have to focus on it, or otherwise, like, if you blink, you're going to miss a whole transitional sequence. So that's one of the bad things. The overall story is fun, but it's not great. It doesn't feel epic or anything like that, which I don't think it was trying to do. It was trying to be more fun than epic, but I don't know. It could have been better, in my opinion. The story it could have worked its way in there a little bit more, If you compare it to, like, Above the Law, aka Righting Wrongs, that has an epic feel to the movie, and thus it's an epic movie. This is a fun movie, and thus it's a fun movie, which is fine, but it's not quite as good as being epic. Where does epic and fun fall on the scale? There's no scale. There's no scale for that. But, so there's that. And then, like I said, kind of the good and the bad was, I felt like they didn't really need, like, the flip stuffs for Cynthia, Meng Hui and Chin Soo Ho, they can get away with that shit. And even Jeffrey Falcon, to a certain extent, he's used monkey style. That was a pretty good monkey style impression. Summoning my inner Hasao Hui, or however you pronounce his name, the guy who played the Mad Monkey Kung Fu. So, yeah, I didn't feel that the film really needed that. The action would have been better off if they just would have had her kick some ass, and, the fights are cool, but, again, sometimes they're a little bit short, and then, like I said, with the ending one. And particularly, there is a cool scene where, like, there's this truck, and it's got the headlights on Cynthia Rothrock and Jeffrey Falcon, and, you get this sort of silhouette sequence, and I wish they would have had more of that. That's such a cool sequence, and to just have this little nugget of it. I'm an adult. I want chicken fingers, not chicken nuggets, okay? Give me a finger's worth of it, not a nugget. So, I guess that's pretty much the bad, really. I mean, everything else just kind of, the acting's decent. It's, it follows well within the Hong Kong style of the time. I will say, one more good thing was that, Cynthia actually, with this being really her first, like, full starring role, this was her movie. This was Blonde Fury. This wasn't Cynthia Rothrock featuring, somebody else, or somebody else featuring Cynthia Rothrock, rather. This was her movie, damn it. So, that's, so it was great to get to see her in that light. So because this is running longer than I wanted again, there's so many things I just want to get to. But anyway, because this is running longer than I wanted again, so okay. Where does it stand on the scale? The scale of, martial arts awesomeness and stuff. Okay, fair enough. With 0 being the nothing of fucking Ninja Revenge, with that being the floor. You remember? Do you remember the Never-Ending Story? You remember the nothing? It's hanging out with Ninja Revenge right now. It's in fact impressed by its awfulness. And 10 being going out on a date with Angela Mao. I don't know. I don't think her husband would appreciate that at all. I don't know, maybe he would. I don't know the guy. So, where does it fall on the scale? Alright, well, it's like a 8? 8 to 8.5. Somewhere in there. Some arbitrary number that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And what does an 8 or an 8.5 amount to? I guess, you know what an 8.5 is? It's like asking Angela Mao out on a date, and then her husband going over there being like, no? But then she's over there, she dusts you off after he kicks the shit out of you or something like that, and pats you on the back because you're a nice guy. You weren't trying to be a dick. That's what, like, an 8.5 is. I would go home happy with that. So, so that's my review for this film. And I'm awake and I'm happy. And it's running longer than I wanted to get. But live with it. Damn it, eventually I'll figure this shit out. Alright, so okay. To end on this note, alright? Angela Mao's husband kicking the shit out of me. I think he's like really well. He'd just pay people to kick the shit out of me. Anyway. So, because I am mortal enemies with the Kung Fu Killer, I have to expect to die in the ultimate fight. Because I am Brandon Wenzel. And I review martial arts films because I know Kung Fu. Have a good one, folks.